me. So if you've joined, you're probably connected to me online. But my name's John. I'm a Python Django recruiter. I've been doing this since 2008. So Django would have been like 0.9697, something like that at that point. So that's 17 years of recruiting Python engineers and Django engineers, predominantly UK, Europe, and US more recently. And I suppose through that time we've done certain other things. We've given lightning talks at conferences. I've spoken at a Django mini conference in Copenhagen. Spoken at the London Python and Django meetups, which I also have been involved in and hosting for years. I'm a individual member of the Django Software Foundation, and I am via Foxley Talent. We are corporate sponsors of the Django Software Foundation as well. For those of you who are involved in the Django community, you'll know who the DSF are. For those who aren't aware, the DSF is the non-profit that essentially makes Django happen for everybody else, and is in charge of all the goings on for Django itself and the community. I've got a question here, Jacob. Thank you for helping me out, because I'm waiting for something to ask. Not looking for work, but I'd like to know how the market currently evolves, especially grouped by geographics and also in comparison to other frameworks. Okay. I suppose in answer to that, I can't go too much into other frameworks. I suppose I can talk about Fast API or Flask. Also came across a new thing recently called Frappe. Put your hand up if you've heard of that. Use the little icon. Has anyone heard of Frappe? We have, yeah. I hadn't. I'd heard of it last week. It's I think it's a no-code solution. So it's Frappe like the coffee. It's a no-code Python-based framework. Never heard of it, but it's something that I'll keep an eye on and see where that goes. It could be a great way for people to sort of enter into the Python and Django world. The job market right now is improving. I'd say slowly. I think if you sort of look over the last sort of four years, so sort of May 2021, and the end of like COVID, or coming towards the end of COVID restrictions in the UK and around Europe, there was a huge surge in hiring requirements for Python and Django engineers. There's probably 4 or 5 jobs for every one person looking for work, and that created a real, appetite to hire. People were being a lot more flexible about the requirements, giving a lot of opportunities to graduates or like international remote working. And where we, over the 2021 was sort of a bit of a boom, a bit of a growth period. 22, things sort of stabilised. 23, as the sort of the venture capitalists, the VCs in the US started withdrawing funding. A lot of startups therefore started making layoffs, and big tech made a lot of layoffs. I think that's had an impact, and we're still sort of feeling it a little bit now, whether the lending or the investment is harder to come by. People who are reliant on that to hire and to grow into their businesses have been held up or slowed down a little bit. What a majority of the companies who we've seen hiring are probably smaller. They're sort of self-sustained. They're maybe in market and making revenue, and are they're in a solid position, and they're offering stable work. So they're not offering work based on false economies. They're being very sensible and very cautious about hiring. And what that has meant is that they can be a little bit more selective. And if they've got their ideal candidate, they can wait for that person. They can conduct multiple rounds of interviews. They can keep people waiting on a decision until that right person comes along. What that has then had the sort of the reverse knock on to, which we saw in like 4 or 5 years ago, is that people are now not really hiring as many junior engineers. People are not really hiring internationally. They're sort of saying, look, I need one person this year, and I want it to be a person who can come into the office, or somebody who I can meet up with regularly, or I can talk to easily, where my company doesn't have to go through any sort of international hiring rules, or to take on visa sponsorship and that sort of thing. So I think what the market is showing at the moment, or sort of consistently over the last year or two, is that looking for work closer to home is going to be your best chance of picking up work. So that's sort of what the market looks like. In terms of other frameworks, I think, you know what, I've never actually been approached to hire a fast API developer, a Python developer working with fast API. I don't know whether that's because I don't even know what that would be for. I'd happily speculate if anybody wants to comment on why they think it would be. But I have been asked to hire Flask people. Obviously, recently, sort of starting looking out for something like Frappe. But fast APIs was strange. I've never been asked to hire within that. Maybe it's people are using it more independently on smaller projects where they don't need to hire people. That could be the reason there. I mean, just sort of on a similar one. Tanushree, I'm in the UK on a... Okay, another admission. I'm currently in the UK on a dependent visa, actively looking for job opportunities. Just want to ask, does Foxy support candidates like me? Do you help with resumes, give suggestions for technologies to focus on? Look, we do hire software engineers in the UK. We work, it's Python, Django focused people that we work with. It's rare that a company will come to us as a third-party agency to hire somebody who needs sponsorship, because there is a cost in place to hire a developer through a recruitment agency. So say which is going to be X amount of the salary. If there's then also a cost to pay on top for a visa sponsorship, then there's sort of those costs add up based on the salary, which makes it less worthwhile coming to a recruiter. If their company's going to hire and sponsor a visa, they'll probably do that directly. I think maybe in the 17 years I've worked in this space, I think I've maybe placed one person who required a visa, and that was only after they'd spent a year in the business on a post-study visa. You just got to be, I'd say your chances of finding employment are probably greater by applying directly to companies if you need sponsorship than via a recruitment agency, because it's only one cost to the company rather than two. And the companies will essentially they come to us and say, oh, hey, look, we're not in a position where we can sponsor somebody, so please can you go out and find us somebody who is local, who is eligible to work in the country. So we're never asked to go and work on relocations or sponsorship options. So unfortunately, I can't help there. There used to be a page somewhere which had software companies who pay, or companies who hire with visas, and you'd have to search online whether it's still there or not. I'm not sure, but that's one of the main reasons why we don't really do much with visa, is because it is the cost of sponsoring the visa and the cost of paying for a search fee for a recruiter. Hopefully that answered your question. Larry, why most Django positions come with a mandatory knowledge for front end? it's not necessarily. I don't think most come with a mandatory knowledge. I think if, as I said at the beginning of the session, that companies can take their time now to find the perfect person, and if they think that person will be useful if they understand front end, then they will wait for a person who, a candidate that can do that. I think as well, like if people are now trying, companies will be trying to get the most value they can from a hire. So if somebody is able to write basic front end, then that helps with product development, with prototyping. I think it shows a breadth of knowledge. Generally, even you'll get roles which are back end heavy. A Python Django engineer role with the sort of full requirements, and then it might be a nice to have to know front end skills. But again, the bigger the company or the bigger the team that you're interviewing or applying to, the more likely they are to have sort of specific front end engineers in the team. But knowing what they do is useful. And then you've got the full stack roles where on a full stack role, you're expected to know it. So if you don't know front end, then focus on the back end roles. If you do know front end, look at the full stack things. Somebody's written, it was on Reddit, it was a person called Operation Web Dev, and they've said, "Hey John, my question: what is the best way to hook a recruiter or hiring manager with a CV or cover letter? This would be my first developer role, but I already have Python experience and personal projects in Django. Thanks." So the question is like, how do you approach a recruiter or hiring manager, and how do you hook them with your details? I think the key thing is to take some time over crafting the email and do it yourself. Don't use ChatGPT or something like that. It's got to be in your words, because if you write in a certain way and then when you're on a call or speaking to them, it's different. It won't sound right. So I would say your best approach in writing an email with a hook is to look at that person's profile, whether they've got, where did they go to university? Or is it their company? Have they posted or shared that they've been at an event or a conference? Do you have any mutual connections who could introduce you? So if you've got a mutual connection with that person, you can either say, "Oh, hey, I know X, Y, and Z person. I see you're connected to them. I'm sure they'd give a good word for me." Or you could say to that person, "Please introduce me to this hiring manager," and put in a good word straight away. CV and cover letter. CV, I think you can go two routes. You can have one CV that is you through and through, and if you have your one CV there that is very clear about what you're doing, you can apply to every job that is available. If you are trying to write it bespoke to each one, you're not going to change your LinkedIn behind the scenes as well to match it. So just be careful like where you're going. But I think the closest or the best way to deal with it is to go very specifically, I want to be X type of engineer, and I'm going to write my CV in that way. And then your cover letter would, again, don't just, "Dear Sir, Madam, please consider me for your job." Put something very specific about why you like the company, why you like the industry, what you're trying to do, what you can offer them, and go from there. So hopefully that answers that question from Reddit. Right, Lara, I'm going to come back to your question now. So you originally asked, for those who are new on the call, on the junior AI topic, do you have advice for junior devs for landing a job? What skills are now more important that weren't before? I've heard quite a good amount of different voices. What's the new junior developer profile companies now seeking for? I think, as I said earlier, there's not as many companies hiring junior engineers as there were 2, 3, 4 years ago. The reason being is that there isn't as much I suppose, yeah, the companies who are hiring, their profiles change. They're not trying to build, large teams of software engineers, and they maybe have budget for one hire per year or in that period, and they are therefore looking to hire somebody who's got some commercial experience. How do you get your commercial experience? I think it's through, you're going to need to be proactive. For juniors right now, I think the best way to do that is to locate local companies or local developers to yourself who are working. Where do they work? What companies are local to you that use the tech stack that you want to work with, and can you apply to them, offering your services, whether they've got a job or not, based on the fact that you are in X city, Y country, and you can work on site. Suddenly that becomes your USP. I did actually put something on my YouTube channel with this advice on it. Let me see if I can I'll drop it to the comments so you can watch it another time. YouTube. Copy that link. Here you go, Laura. I'm just going to pop it in here for you. So it may not be exactly where you're at, but it should give you a good idea about how to sort of go about searching for people who are in junior roles that you would want to do. Right. Bello, here we go. What are the metrics for ranking if somebody is mid-level engineer or senior? In most cases, conflicted while applying to certain organisations. Okay, that's a really good question. I love that. So, what makes an engineer mid, junior, or senior? I suppose it's your depth of knowledge. It's not on. I suppose it's not on me to sort of quantify whether somebody's mid, junior, or senior. It will be based on the roles that they've already been doing, and the responsibilities that you have in that role currently. I think a good way of looking at it was I had a client I worked with sort of recently where they'd actually got a bit of a metric or a matrix of how they judged people, and I really liked it, so I sort of saved a part of that. So like for juniors, it's the proficiency is like a learning proficiency. So you're learning on the job, and you're doing, and while you're developing, you're learning how to code, learning how business works, and that sort of thing. As you progress into like a mid-level, it's more of like a doing role. So you're capable and competent of doing the job without as much help or hand holding, that you're able to own projects or to answer questions around you, or to find your own answers. And then the senior is more like a mastering. So you actually have sort of mastered the skill. You're solving problems for yourself, for your team. You're able to design software that works and is using best practice. There might be elements of the job where you're sort of speaking with juniors and mentoring those sort of people, and then also as you progress as a senior, you almost got two routes from there. So as a senior engineer, you've got the potential of being like a sole contributor, whether you're like the fountain of knowledge in that company, or you're going to go down sort of like a mentoring route is the other route. So sort of almost like the tracks branch away at that point. So it's like, am I going down a people route, or am I going into the code route? And that sort of, I suppose, is how things are differentiated. But with the caveat is that every company is different. Every company will look at how they classify their senior developers versus the developers that they're interviewing. It's just, and it could sometimes come down to salary or to the size of company again. So there's lots of variables, and I think as long as you're happy in the job and you're being challenged in the job and you're progressing yourself, job titles shouldn't matter quite as much. It is nice to have a little badge that says senior though. So hopefully that, it will never be the same because every organisation is different. So yeah, hopefully there. Right. Rizwan, here we go. A full stack developer with Python, Django, React deployment side was set as well as AWS Docker. Yeah. What additional SaaS developments unit with additional SaaS? Yeah. Can I land a job in other countries like Germany or other skills? I mean, there's nothing stopping you getting a job in other countries. I don't know where you are. If you're in Europe, then yeah, there's no reason you can't pick up jobs across the European Union. That's one of the, I suppose, the benefits of that setup that in Europe, where people can work across borders. If you're outside of Europe, it's going to be a lot harder to do that. The company will need to ensure that they are set up to employ internationally, which is not always as easy. There's the hurdles such as not necessarily international trade agreements, but if they are employing somebody in whatever the country that you're based in, is there an agreement between Germany and that country to trade services or to match employment? I know in the UK we have agreements or treaties with certain countries that will allow for VAT still to be charged and claimed back against our own government, against that government's tax, or vice versa, or to be or some instances it can be waived. But I think the common trend right now is that people are trying to hire locally as opposed to internationally, and sort of I suppose I was having a chat last night at a meetup in London, and it was the same conversation. It was sort of temper your expectations. Expect if you've got all the right skills, look for the best job that you can do in the country that you're based in. Company who's hiring with the right tech stack, and you can progress from there. If you're looking internationally, and a company is posted to say, "Oh, hey, we'll take global remote applications," you can expect there's going to be a lot of competition for that one role. If a company's saying, "Look, we'll hire globally," you've got to think there's all the people who are based in that country already, all the people who are based in neighbouring countries in the same time zone, all the people who are based in countries where there are no restrictions about working internationally, and then you've got the rest of the world, and you could be talking about competing against thousands of people for one role. It's just such a big, a large pool of people that you're competing against. Focus closer in, and you probably find yourself getting work that way. Someone's written here, nowadays having crypto in hands that helps in paying compensations. Why companies still limit themselves? I don't know. Why do they have strict rules of hiring within the UK or within UK when they can hire around the world? Because it's up to them. Why do they stick with it? It's because it's what they know. I imagine a British software company will their preference will be somebody who is based in the UK who can jump on a train or drive an hour and be in the office should there need to be a meeting. Yes, you can still do the same job anywhere in the world, but there's so much about work-life balance and the working culture of being together. Remember, remote working was forced upon people in 2020 with the COVID. So with that, people had to look and work remotely. And as people have either become accustomed to it or they've become fatigued with it. And we're seeing more and more people going back to sort of office-based working. Actually, interestingly, we've got 10 people listening along. How many people here work in an office at the moment? Or in their last job? Yeah, there's a hand up there. Yeah, a couple of people working in an office. There you go. Like the there's 2 days a week. There's people are in office, and I think that's the main thing is actually there is, although you can use I think the point was like, what about with crypto? You can pay internationally. It doesn't mean about compensation. Again, it's like if a company is set up and all their banking is based in one currency, they're not then going to transfer money into crypto to pay an engineer somewhere else. It's just not going to happen. No matter how much value there is, it's still not a person who can get to the office within an hour or two, should they need to be. Renault. I did have another question on Reddit, which I'll go to. Okay, there's a person called Duckson, Duksen. I don't know whether they're in the room here. Is Duckson from Reddit in the room? On the chat, on the call? Don't know. Their question was, I am a person who is looking to hire a Django developer. How do I know if I've got the right candidate? Okay. How do you know you've got the right candidate? Well, you probably have a gut feel if this person is somebody that you want to work with. But I think before you start a job search, you need to you draw the steps are you sort of identify the problem. What problem are we trying to solve? Before you start trying to hire somebody, it's like what are they going to bring to the team, and almost like go right. Well, these are the 3 or 4 things that we really want. We really want them to have strong Python and Django. We really need them to have worked. I don't know. Maybe say we really need them to have worked with a certain cloud technology because none of your team have, or you're taking on like a product or a piece of tooling that nobody has got experience with, and if you can hire somebody who's got it, then they're going to tick that box for you. I think the time there is time at the moment to sort of spread your process over a slightly longer period, maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, to make sure you speak to a range of people. But you've got to make, when I've hired in the past, I've got to think, right, have they got the skills? Have they got the experience that I need? But most importantly, it's about sort of attitude. Is this person going to add well to the team? People going to add give benefit to or improve the quality of my team? Is the bar going to raise up? Are they going to be able to teach the people around them? Are they going to be a good learner? Are they going to be a good listener? There's an interesting was it like the thing which is called 10 things that you require no skill, requires 0 talent, and it's things like being on time, making an effort, having good energy, good attitude, being passionate, good body language, all these things. And I think that if you bear a lot, you can't teach somebody to be a good person, but you can teach them to be better at their job. I would always, for the person I think is going to be the right cultural team fit, rather than the person who ticks absolutely every technical box, because you can learn new things. You can't learn not to be a dickhead. That's the blunt way of looking at it. Hopefully that helps, Deccan. Another question. Thanks for keeping them coming. Based on my experience as a recruiter over the years, considering change the dynamics of hiring processes shifting from full remote to hybrid, what are the chances of getting a job with sponsorship for somebody from Africa? I'm sure you must have about good developers who would have wished to have on board, but restricted to geographical location. I think it's always going to be a problem in terms of like the volume of opportunities. Now, one thing that you could potentially do, and it will have to be off your own steam, off your own back, would be to get like if you're talking about coming to the UK, we have something called a global talent visa, where if you can prove that you are a high caliber engineer, you can get a visa to come and work and live in the UK for, I think it's up to like 4 or 5 years, as a as a globally based talented person. It does cost some money to do that, so you'd have to obviously find employment locally to save to pay for it. But once you've made it to the UK and you've found employment, nobody needs to sponsor you, and that's where you'll pick up work and opportunities quite easily. I've met a lot of developers who I'd love to have travelled over, but again, in the world that I work in, we're paid to identify candidates that can do the job and meet the requirements. And if one of those requirements is that they're based already in the UK and there's no sponsorship, there's no the client isn't going to change their mind because we found somebody who needs sponsorship. They're coming to us to find the perfect person in that instance. I suppose if we switch it slightly to talking about remote working, it's no secret, and I shared a salary report of from around, like, we work in the UK, we work in Europe, and we work in the United States, and the salaries available in the States are, I don't know, 150 to 200k for a senior Python engineer. Which is a really high number and something that would be great to achieve. But that is also linked to the cost of living in the US and the way their healthcare system works and the tax and everything that's done there. It doesn't translate directly. But the numbers are really attractive. You've got the UK and probably certain parts of Europe where they're known to have strong economies. Germany, the UK, Scandinavia, France are probably some of the ones that have got strong economies in Europe. And because of that, and the ability to move around Europe and working across borders in Europe, people from less economically strong countries in Europe are taking jobs in have been taking remote jobs within places, within those countries, and therefore leaving not gaps, but leaving companies in, I don't know, for example, Portugal. A lot of Portuguese engineers have found work elsewhere remotely, and therefore in Portugal they're trying to hire outside of Europe. Portugal is linked well, through language with Brazil. So actually what I've seen is quite a lot of Brazilian engineers based in South America are working remotely for Portuguese companies. Now, I know across Africa, a lot of people will speak multiple languages, whether that's sort of native or English, but also some are very proficient. French is quite close to the language spoken. So it could be worth trying to target companies who are based in France to see if you can pick up a remote job there where you're sort of a fluent speaker of the language as well. That could help in that sense, because they're off elsewhere. I'm going off that. That's what I'm. Do you see an increase of demand for skills related to LLMs and AI agents for Python Django developers, or are these things still more for data scientists? In a context, I did get it right. Good. In context where it sounds companies are hiring less and less and asking devs to develop a broader set of skills. I think I'm not seeing a huge increase in LLM AI agent Django work. I think people are aware of the work that can be done by LLMs and using AI, and I think what people are looking for are engineers with a strong fundamental understanding of software engineering, and then with them they are learning and building language models and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's probably closer to the data science. At the start of this year, we helped a company to hire a engineering manager who has had like a full LLM background, who'd been working with knowledge graph and to build out to have the knowledge to build their tool, having done that before. But yeah, it's a very popular topic at the moment, but I wouldn't necessarily back that. Spend your time learning that to get a job. Where when you get on the job, you might have to unlearn some of the things that you've been self-taught. I'd almost back yourself as a software engineer to pick up work and then to use AI and LLMs in there. A couple of people have joined. Somebody here's asked, this is from Reddit, somebody called Significant Glove 274. So asked, what sort of portfolio projects would you recommend? A few different but simpler projects showing a range of skills, or a super complex one. What would make you, just admit one more, what would make you go wow when you're checking out a candidate, and what can the candidates miss out from their skills? Okay, so yeah, this is interesting. I was chatting about this at the event last night as well. Adding projects to your portfolio, I suppose this is more sort of for juniors where you've got no work history to put on. I would say, rather than coming up with another like note-taking app or a to-do list or a calendar thing or a menu, like the very generic things that maybe get taught in boot camps or people are advised to do, think about building something properly that solves a real problem. I'm not saying go and start a product or build something that's going to turn into a business. I think it's just find something that really is going to help you out and build it, because it will impact you and you'll be able to talk knowledgeably about it, and it will add some benefit to yourself, because then it will actually mean something to you, and you'll build a better product. If you just go and build a to-do list, it's very easy, but it's also been done hundreds of thousands of times. Like, for anybody going through a boot camp or one of those, you could build a complicated blog page or a photo app or something like that. But again, it's just what problem is it solving? One of the skills that people like to see in a software engineer is to be able to solve a problem, to identify and solve a problem, and then design a solution that solves that. So that was probably how I would answer that one. So hold on. What does Dennis? Here we go. What does a junior or mid-level developer need to know about Django or DRF to get a job? Like some skills or tools. I'd say a mid-level developer will have already worked with Django or Django REST framework, and will need to just be proficient when changing job. I think as a junior, the more you know, the better. The more sort of personal projects you've done, or the bigger the personal project you've done, great. Look at some of the looking at some of the repos and things that what people are doing, looking online, visiting and watching the talks from conferences will only help you learn more. There was at Django Con in Dublin, maybe about 3-4 weeks ago, and there are so many talks on there about so many different parts of areas of Django that you can become specialized in, or people are using in different ways. It's very there's a lot of resource out there for a junior to build on their knowledge, and you should be able to do that. Whether you can find a specific talk about DRF to go and listen to, or a certain element of Django that you want to listen back to, that could be really helpful. So there was a question on Reddit as well, which I'll go back to now, which says, with the state of the industry and hiring trends, particularly around accounting for AI bots flooding the inbox of recruiters, how does a mid-level or a developer stand out, even a junior trying to break into the industry? Um, so yeah, I got uh, I had an incident last year with whereas a bot or a real person using a fake LinkedIn profile, a deep fake filter over their face on a call, um, trying to I still don't know what the end goal is, what they're trying to achieve, but yeah, people are trying to con their way into jobs, and I suppose this answers a little bit about everybody asking, how they can pick up jobs remotely, and why people don't want to hire internationally remotely is because people are getting so many instances of foreign nationals from wherever they're based, like people applying for their jobs, and um, not turning out to be genuine engineers. I think that has a real negative for people. But the way to deal with it is to be a real person online. Like if you've got a profile, and I don't know if you follow me on here or on on LinkedIn. I suppose this is slightly is LinkedIn, but if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on Reddit, if I'm on Mastodon, if I'm on Twitter, I use the same handle. I Yeah, I try to make sure that there's continuity about it. I'm always using the same graphics and the same voice, and if I'm posting stuff, I share it across multiple platforms because that builds trust for you guys to listen to me, or to come to me when you need help. So I suppose if you're constantly ever present as, um, Jon Gould on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Mastodon, on Reddit, your name will be, and GitHub, your name will be consistent. Or if you use the same, what's it called, profile name, whatever, everywhere, then your profile will grow, and you can make that known within your CV. I think the one thing that bots can't replicate is like genuine human interaction. Um, that's where I suppose by going to conferences you get to meet people in real life. You get to show them that you are a real person, that you've given up your own time to go to a conference to learn, or to a meetup, or you're actually doing things that a bot can't do, which is having those human interactions. I think that's the best way to do it. And look, a lot of people think of recruiters as there to help you when you're looking for a job. I think that makes the relationship very transactional. If you've got wherever you're based, if you've got a recruiter who works in your space there, talk to them regularly. If they're in your city, ask to go and meet for a coffee, chat about the market, go and ask them questions about like what tech people are hiring, what should they be learning while they're happy in their job, and making sure they're doing so that in the future you can be more hireable or more desirable from a hiring perspective. So building those relationships when you don't need them, so that when you do, they're already in place, and then people will be like, oh yeah, I've met that person multiple times or spoken to them. I would accept their CV and their application. Try that. Jacob, in DjangoCon shared a screenshot from the internet. I did put the whole video on YouTube. Let me It's a good question. Oh, it's not a good question, but I will put that. Let me go and grab a thing for the video. Share. I'll put the. There you go. I'll post that in here. So this is the thing with the deep fake candidate who came in, and I went into detail about. I posted it up onto LinkedIn and said, hey, this has happened to me. Does anyone have any idea why? And there are a load of theories that came out, so I shared some of those on here as well. Cool. Light or four. Here we go. For one focusing on full stack with Django, does a front end framework matter? Give you an edge when searching for jobs? No, not really. I just say, like, there used to be a thing where you joke about, what day of the week is it? What's the new JavaScript framework that's come out? I think things have calmed down a little bit, but I think, look at what's being used most in job specs. Where people are advertising, even if it's a job you can't apply for, or you're not successful applying for. I see TypeScript probably the most at the moment. React is still very common and popular. Vue.js is probably the third, and then keep an eye out for something like HTMX, which people are talking about quite a lot. I always gauge off, when I'm at a conference, the talks that people enjoy or that they've listened to, like notably at DjangoCon US 18 months ago. Everybody was, pretty impressed with the talk about HTMX, and the guy who gave the talk then was always with people at lunch and in the hallways afterwards, people talking to them about their experience with HTMX and how they can get onto it as well. So TypeScript, React, Vue.js, and HTMX are probably the front end stuff to keep an eye on, but just go deeper into your Django at the same time.